What's going on, guys? My name is Joshua McDonald and I make no BS CDL content. If you guys want more no BS CDL content about how to become a truck driver or some tips when you're currently a truck driver or how to start your own CDL business for all things CDL, make sure you subscribe down below. But let's jump right into it and talk about your first paycheck that you're going to get as a truck driver. So today, we're going to talk about how much that check is going to be, how you're going to earn it, and how you can get to that point of making money in trucking. So I still remember the exact feeling of waiting on that first paycheck as a truck driver. You know, you've already put in weeks, if not months of effort. You have CDL school, backing practice, failed maneuvers, retest, orientation, paperwork, riding with a trainer that you don't even know, sleeping in a moving truck, learning how to live out of a duffel bag, and at this point, you are physically and mentally exhausted. But you're excited because in your mind, that first paycheck is supposed to make it all feel worth it. So you guys have probably done some math in your head already. You remember what your recruiter said when you were hired on with that company. You remember the pay rate. You remember hearing numbers that sounded way better than any job you've ever had before trucking. So you're thinking, yeah, this check is about to hit different. And then that first paycheck drops. And for a lot of new drivers, that moment is when reality officially introduces itself to you guys. So this video is not here to discourage you. It's here so that moment doesn't catch you off guard, because almost nobody in trucking talks honestly about the first paycheck that you're going to get. And that silence causes a lot of good drivers to quit way too early. So let's talk about it. No filters, just the truth, guys. So most new drivers walk into trucking thinking that the pay is going to start off strong and it just gets stronger and stronger from there. That belief usually comes from hearing pay numbers without context behind it. When someone said, drivers here at this company make $1,200 a week, your brain fills in the blanks and assumes that applies to you immediately. What no one clearly explains is that those numbers usually describe experienced drivers running full weeks, no downtime, no training pay, no short checks, and no learning curve whatsoever. So your first paycheck is not a reflection of your potential, it's a reflection of where you are in the system. And at the beginning, you are at the very bottom of that system with your company. So that doesn't necessarily mean that you're getting scammed. It means trucking is structured in a way that ramps up over time. But the problem is nobody really prepares you emotionally for that ramp up period. So for a lot of new drivers, the first paycheck comes during training, guys. And training pay is kind of its own shock in its own. You're working long days, you're riding with a trainer, you're doing pre-trips, post-trips, backing, trip planning, and driving in conditions you've never felt before. And you're mentally drained every single day taking in all this new knowledge. Then the paycheck comes, and the number does not match the effort 9 times out of 10. That's because training pay is a flat rate, so it's not based on how hard you work. It's not based on how many hours you were awake. It's a fixed number that the company decided was just enough for training. And sometimes that number barely covers your bills back home. This is where a lot of new drivers start questioning their decision of why they got started in the first place. You start thinking, if this is what trucking pays, I made a huge mistake. But training pay is not trucking pay. It's temporary. It's survival pay, guys. It exists to get you through the learning phase, not to impress you. And let's talk about orientation, because orientation is another part nobody explains very well. Orientation feels like work, guys. You're still waking up early, you're sitting in classrooms, doing physicals, drug tests, paperworks, watching a bunch of stupid safety videos, road tests. Your brain is fried by the end of every day in orientation. But orientation pay, if you get any at all, often doesn't line up cleanly with your first paycheck. Sometimes it's delayed. Sometimes it's a prorated amount. Sometimes it shows up later than you expect. So that leads to a lot of confusion, frustration, and feeling that money is missing. It usually isn't missing, it's just the trucking payroll moving slower than you expected getting into this business. And also, your first solo paycheck is the one you really care about, guys. This is the paycheck that's supposed to prove that you made the right choice. You're running loads by yourself, you handle the truck, you delivered freight, you did the job. So when that check shows up smaller than you imagined, it really hits hard. What most new drivers don't realize is that their first solo week is rarely a full, clean week. You might have started in Wednesday, Tuesday, midweek. You might have sat waiting on a load for a long time. You might have had short miles. Dispatch is still learning how to work with you, and you're still learning how to manage your clock. Every delay costs miles, and miles are money in this business. So it's not a punishment, guys. It's just a learning curve that really shows up on paper. And one of the biggest emotional hits is seeing deductions. Getting into any employment, you're going to have a lot of taxes when it comes to having a job, especially in the trucking industry where you're making decent money. So these taxes alone surprise a lot of people. You also have insurance, benefits, 401k, Roth IRA, any advances that you took up front with the company, and suddenly that gross number shrinks really fast, guys. So for new drivers, this really feels like a personal attack. It feels like something was taken from you. But this is the payroll math every working adult has to deal with eventually. The difference is trucking pay is variable, so deductions feel heavier when the gross isn't huge yet. This is why when experienced drivers talk about net pay, not gross. Gross sounds good, but net is real life how much you're actually putting in your pocket. And most new drivers are paid by the mile, and that's a system that takes a lot of getting used to. If the wheels aren't turning, you're not earning. Traffic doesn't pay, sitting weather doesn't pay, and sitting at a dock doesn't pay unless you're qualified for detention. And even then, it's limited versus whether you're on the road. Early on, you're really slow, you're cautious, you have to double check everything and make sure you did it right, which is great for safety, but it costs miles. Over time, your efficiency will improve and so does your pay. But the first few checks don't reflect that yet. Another reason the first paycheck feels smaller is because your expenses go up really fast. Truck stop food is expensive. Drinks add up. Little things you didn't plan for start eating into your money, guys. A $700 check feels a whole lot different when you're spending money just to get through the week in the truck, guys. This is why veteran truckers always pack food, they plan their meals, and avoid impulse spending. It's not about being cheap, it's about survival during the early phase. And let's talk about your mindset, guys. This is the part that nobody talks about enough. That first paycheck doesn't just affect your wallet, it affects your mindset. You're gonna start questioning yourself. You're gonna start wondering if somebody lied to you, if you were misled. You're gonna feel tired, lonely, underpaid all at once. And a lot of people quit right here. Not because they can't drive the truck, not because they're bad at the job, but because the emotional gap between expectation and reality feels way too big to handle. The drivers who make it in this business are usually the ones who expected this phase and pushed through it. So a small first paycheck is normal, guys. A second small paycheck can also be normal. But if months go by and nothing improves, this is where you have to start really paying attention to things. Consistently low miles, unplanned deductions, and constant unpaid sitting are not part of a healthy trucking job. So the key is knowing between a slow start and a bad situation. And as you experience, things will change for you guys. Your dispatch will trust you more, you'll get better loads, you'll waste less time, and you'll learn how to manage your clock. Suddenly, the miles show up, the checks will stabilize, and the stress drops. The first paycheck was never meant to be impressive. It was just meant to get you through the door and get you started. So your first paycheck as a truck driver is not a final verdict. It's just a snapshot of how you're getting started. It shows where you are in the process, not where you're going. Almost every driver who has made good money today has had a first check that has disappointed them. And the difference is they didn't quit over it. So remember, guys, don't get discouraged, and just remember this is where a lot of drivers start off. But thankfully enough, you listened to this whole video and you know what to expect as your first, maybe second paycheck. But if you guys want more no BS trucker videos, make sure you subscribe to my channel. I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll see you in the next one.